Welcome to the first video on learning C++. In this video we will look at the different pieces of a Hello World project. So in Eclipse I'm going to create a new C++ project. We're going to use a Hello World C++ project template, name the project Hello World, and I'm going to choose the MinGW GCC toolchain. I can click Finish. So let's look at the different pieces of this program. At the top here, it has automatically inserted what's known as a comment. Comments allow you to type whatever information you want into the program that isn't used by the compiler. This can allow you to leave notes for yourself or documentation for others. Here you can see that comments are always single lines preceded with 2 forward slashes, but block comments also exist, which begin with a forward slash and an asterisk, and always end with an asterisk and a forward slash. So let's look at the actual program. The first line here, line 12, shows us that we begin with the #include directive. That simply allows you to include code that was made somewhere else by someone else. In this case, we're including a library called IOStream from the C++ standard library. We'll talk about that later. The next line is pretty common in beginning C++ programs. Using namespace. We'll talk about namespaces later, but for now, this is also part of using the external C++ standard library called std. Starting on line 15, we see the main function. We'll talk about functions later, but for now, you should know that the main function is generally where a C++ program begins. The main function is composed of its return type, in this case integer. We'll talk about types later. Its name, main. Parentheses, where later we'll talk about parameters will go. And code, which is always bounded by these curly brackets. On line 16, we see the actual main command of this program, which prints Hello World to the console. We can talk about the pieces of this later, but for now, you'll know that cout is used in this way to print text to the console. Finally, on line 17, we have a return statement, and that just returns the value 0 from this main function, because it returns an integer. Again, we'll talk about functions later, but for now, know that it's typical to return 0 from the main function. So let's compile this program and see what it actually does. So first, in Eclipse, I'm going to click the build icon, which is this hammer. So that built, I see no problems, and on the console, we see that it built successfully. So now we want to run this program for the first time. So I'm going to right-click on the project and select Debug as Local C++ Application. This will take us to the debug profile in Eclipse, and it will pause us on the first line of the program. You can see that with this arrow. If I resume the program, it will run through and we'll see that it will print Hello World to the console and then terminate. And that's exactly what happens. Down here on the console, you see that it printed Hello World and that the program terminated. The next video in the series will be about data types and variables.